I think it was a disgrace, Darren. Sorry, I think an absolute disgrace. We talk about bringing the next generation along, and to play for Sligo and Leitrim to get an opportunity like that there and not play it at the same time and have that red zone where people are checking their phones. There's a bit of buzz about the county, and to take that away from them, we do market in the GA, but we just tick a box.
Hi there, you're very welcome along to the G Hour with me, Darran O'Sullivan. I'm recording live from Ross Point Bar and Restaurant today. Unfortunately, COVID has caught me after 2 years, but I'm delighted to be joined remotely as well by Galway's Finian Hanley and Donegal's Eamon McGee. How we doing, boys?
Better than you, Darren, I'd say at this stage, but we're COVID free, but yeah, happy to be here remote.
Yeah, Eamon, how are things above in Donegal?
We're good. I think we're dodging bullets ourselves up here. There's a lot of COVID knocking about, so hopefully I'll manage to stay away from it.
Yeah. No, I avoided it up to now and I'm not feeling too bad. So look, I'll isolate anyway. So I'm lucky I have a bit of peace and quiet here in the bar this morning.
So to isolate anyway, aren't you?
Well, that's it. But it's a bit lonesome on my own. But look, the great thing about the weekend is yet again, it was another action-packed weekend. How we're going to fit it all into an hour of talk, I don't know. But I suppose the main talking point has to be the Dubs relegated to Division 2. We all thought that they'd found their mojo, that they were back up and running. We were all, especially me, I was writing Monaghan off, but they've done it for the third year in a row. They've avoided the drop. And Jack McCarron started the show. I think Philly McMahon had an article out the morning of the game calling him out a small bit about his reaction to a goal a couple of years earlier. So Jack had the last laugh, but it was some game. And to be fair, the way Dublin started, I thought, the Dubs are back. They're going to run away with this. But Monaghan just did it again. They just pulled it out of the bag with an amazing performance. So, Eamon, I'm going to go to you and just your own thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I think we convinced ourselves Dublin are on the way back, but they reverted back to, a lot of the mistakes and a lot of what they were about kind of reminded me of the earlier part of the league. So it's hard to gauge where Dublin are. I know they still have Con to come back, and a few of the lads that probably, like Johnny and James McCarthy, will get more game time. But they just seem to be way, way off it in terms of, if you've seen one of Jack McCarron's points where he nearly goes out in the loop under no pressure at all, and this man's on fire, and Mr. Fitzsimmons just gives him so much space, but bangs it over, and it was just so easy. And in terms of, I mentioned James McCarthy there, he gave away, won a ball, and just gave it straight back to Monaghan, man. And it's so unlike Dublin to see that. With you mentioned Jack McCarron thing, he put on a great performance, and we've been chatting about Jack McCarron in the league for years and the stuff he's done with the left foot. But to be firing back at Offaly, I know Dick Clerkin's related him, but I seen Dick put up a tweet about Jack or whatever Offaly said about him. Like, Offaly's done it in Championship, and I know I'm going to be a bit of a grump, and Jack was like that goalie too. Listen, I've got to be. He'll be in the forwards union anyway now, but I'm going to stick with Philly here. Jack's goal. There's not many that would do it, but Jack has to do it in Championship. Jack has to go out. You go and give me Darren Hughes or Jack McCarron, and at the minute I'm still, despite what Jack's done yesterday, I'm still going to go with Darren Hughes for if I had to pick a player, because Darren Hughes has done it in Championship consistently, and I'm going to say, because people are talking about Jack in the same, as say someone like McBrady or Murphy, and once he does it in the summertime, then we'll talk about Jack in the same vein as the lads.
Yeah, I think you're right. In fairness, he has always been a very good league player, and it's time now. He's around long enough now to be bringing into Championship, and I suppose the likes of Darren Hughes, geez, tried and trusted in these Monaghan boys. In fairness, I think it's 3 years in a row that going into injury time in the last game, they've been relegated and they've managed to pull it out of the bag. And it's always said about him, they do get the max out of themselves. And you mentioned a couple of the scores where it was just so unlike Dublin. Fitzsimon standing off. I think the one you were talking about, he actually swung over with his right foot as well. And even the goal, Fitzsimon actually stood up to give out to the referee instead of getting back. So there are an awful lot of unlike Dublin things, and it is only Con really that we can see to come back into it. So, like Finian, would you be worried about? Is there a kick to come in Dublin? Are they out of contention now, or what is the main issue with them?
Yeah, I suppose we spoke about it last week with regards to what their strengths were in the past, and that was obviously the bench. They were always rolling out players a lot more experienced, a lot better than the opposition, and simply they had 20 players that could absolutely bowl you over. I suppose where they're at now is there's a bit of fatigue there after obviously what has gone on the last 6, 7, 8 years. With the older guys or the more experienced guys, you're changing the goalie around at the minute. That's all a bit shaky. And then you're bringing on, lads come on yesterday, young Wright and O'Leary, guys that you haven't heard of before. They're down to Division 2. I don't think they'll be overly. People we'll sit here and we say, Jesus, Dublin are in Division 2 or whatever it is. But I think for those younger guys coming through, it might be a better place for them to start, to build up their confidence, get back up to Division 1 and start again. Because realistically, they are starting again. I think, the conveyor belt seems to, that quick fix conveyor belt of bringing in a superstar every year seems to have lulled a bit. So, they may need to go back to their underage now and bring in, seven, like they did in 2009 and 10, and bring in 7, 8, 9, 10 guys and build them up from scratch. And like Division 2 will be, Galway were down there this year, and we had a lot of young guys as well who have performed to date. Now, obviously, the summer will tell the difference, but I just think, everyone's a bit kind of flat. They're still relying, like Kilkenny. There's only so much those boys can take to really drag players over the line. And yesterday, they showed at times, as you said, I thought they were coming good. Definitely not back to where they were. Like, can they win the All Ireland? Dublin can do a lot of things, but I just don't know, will they have the actual support cast to get them over the line this year. Monaghan, well worth their victory yesterday. I think Monaghan are, as I said last week, Monaghan are contenders definitely for us. They're well organised. But, I agree with Eamon on the Jack McCarron piece as well. It's in the height of the summer or the spring now, as it is when he'll have to stand up. But Dublin still Leinster contenders. I think they'll win Leinster, but I don't see them beating a Kerry or even a Mayo. I don't see them beating a Mayo either.
Yeah, and one of the things, just to come in there, Darren, one of the things that I've noticed about Dublin is that the thing that stood to them the most throughout, the last decade was their ability to work it out on field. Like, it's the real top quality teams that are able to do that. The good teams will win All Ireland by sticking to the game plan, but the top class teams will win multiples because they're able to think, right, we've encountered a problem here, let's work it out in the pitch. And Dublin seem to have lost that. They just weren't able to work it out, and they were, as I say, it was just kind of going back, relying on stuff that they did previous, and I would worry for them when they do encounter situations come the summertime.
Yeah, Finian, you mentioned there about the conveyor belt of talent, and look, I suppose the last person that mentioned the conveyor belt, Kerry went on to win All Ireland, and Donny had a good shout out after, so I won't go beating that drum. But the likes of Kieran Archer, just to name one, he was an underage star that we were all expecting to come on and explode, and there's absolutely no sign of him. And like what you were saying, there was a stage there in the game and they're 6 or 7 points down, and I know, look, they brought it back to a level game, but they just looked lost of ideas. They just looked so unlike Dublin. They were going into cul-de-sacs. They were like that, passing ball without looking. They were going into contact, getting turned over. And I don't want to keep beating on the Dublin drum because at the end of the day, Monaghan were outstanding. And the big thing for me going into Ulster is, can Monaghan improve their consistency? Can they put in a real fight, not only for Ulster, and I don't want to just avoided the drop, so it wasn't exactly a great league for them. Can they kick on? Because there's only so much left in this current team, and I know they always max out, but a lot of them are hitting the wrong side of 30 now. Can they get one last push out of this current crop, Eamon?
They can. They've been operating in the top division for a long time, and I touched on it last week that they really pride their Division 1 status. And I think if you're playing Division 1 consistently, then you're in with a shout. But it's up to the likes of Jack McCarron to complement Conor McManus now when the summertime comes. And Monaghan will always trouble a good team, and it's just about them getting up and running in the Ulster campaign, and then whatever they do in the All Ireland series then.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, we're going to go around to all the other games, or as many as we can, because there's so much to talk about it. But I suppose the one game we actually did get to watch properly was Dublin Monaghan, and a big talking point over the weekend was the lack of coverage. I think fair play to TG Carroll. Without him, we'd all be lost, and they did a great job yesterday of trying to keep us tuned into all the games. So, in fairness, massive credit to them. But it is a big issue, I think, at the moment, the lack of coverage of games. And as far as I know, the broadcasting rights are up for grabs again. And for me, it's a prime time for the GAA to start looking at going off on their own, maybe creating a channel. Now, I'm not the best man to be talking about it or coming up with ideas, but there's such a hunger to watch the games. And during COVID, they were all streamed. I think it's a great opportunity for the GAA to go off now and do something different, create a channel, or I don't know, something, because it was very frustrating the weekend. So many big games all over the country, people crying out to watch them, and they couldn't. Finian, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but you're probably smarter than me. You might have a couple of great ideas there.
No, I don't. I suppose the GAA is at a crossroads in a lot of things. We spent all last week talking about expenses and players and GPA and mixing professionalism and stuff. I think we're kind of, as a whole, as a group, they need to sit down around the table and see where is this going. They're trying not to let it go professional. But look, we all sit down and watch soccer Saturday on a Saturday. I know I do, and and 3:00 starts and it's on there, and Clinton Morrison and the boys, they're throwing out different games and stuff. I don't know, like, is there any way of doing something like that on a Sunday? Now, the problem with the GAA is all the games are on at different times, and we'll get to the fiasco in Division 4 in a while, I suppose. But something like, if you had from Munster yourself and Eamon and Ulster and Mike Meehan and a Philly McMahon sitting around the table talking about the different games as they are watching the 4 Division 1 games, of course people will watch it. People are listening to different radio stations, but they want to get ideas on how the games are going. The coverage was absolutely brutal. There was nothing, so many people want to watch these matches that can't get to them as well, or at least get a feel for them or get some sort of buzz around them. And as you said last week, Darren, the buzz is around the league because the top teams are playing the top teams. And yesterday was it was great for GAA fans to have all these games that no one knew who's getting relegated, no one knew who's staying up. The Dubs are gone down. There's a lot of talking points, but that would be an idea. And obviously, some sort of, if you can't show games on RTE or you can't show them on TG4, have some sort of program, on the news channel or something like that for a couple of hours that gives us the opportunity to turn on and have someone at least watching the game. I don't know, is that a runner? But the lack of coverage was brutal. And I would have sat down and watched 3 or 4 games yesterday, and there's thousands more that would have as well, So something that has to change. And maybe you're right, maybe it is setting up their own channel. They have GAA Go, but again, it comes back to money and how this works and will it work. But look, if you don't try it, you'll never know.
Yeah, and the last point you there, it always comes back to money. But even having your own channel or streaming, you'd imagine it was a better way of making money that, for me, you could actually divide equally amongst all the counties. Which, look, I don't know, we're not going to solve it here today, but they really have to start thinking outside the box and trying something different, because we keep harping on about how great the league was, and yesterday's or the weekend's league action was unbelievable. There was 4 games in Division 1 and 3 of them were decided by a point. I stupidly put out a couple of predictions on Twitter the weekend. I won't be doing that again. The only one I got right,
Darren, Genie, man, you don't know that. Always sitting the fence.
The only one I got right was I went against you and I backed Donegal. And I suppose we'll go up there next. They're playing each other in Championship. Armagh surprisingly put out a weakened team. Donegal, look, they broke the curse. They got a big win. But I suppose the scenes at the end weren't exactly pretty. I think there'll be a couple of suspensions coming. Look, obviously you'll probably know more about it than I would. It wasn't great. I don't know how it started. I don't know if you have any idea what actually started, because it got ugly.
It did get ugly. We just don't like seeing them kind of scenes. I'd imagine it starts all rows over something silly and a bit of shoving, and then someone comes in and then the third man comes in, and then it just escalates. But what I don't like about these rows now, and it's becoming so commonplace. Listen, I've been in many of them, and Finian's been in many of them too.
I'm staying out of it.
You were around with me. What are you talking about? You started around with me down in Florida. What are you?
We were buddies. That was crack.
I don't like the headlocks. When there's about 3 or 4 men and on top of someone, and someone puts you in a headlock, it can be dangerous. I remember chatting to our team doctor, and I don't know, do you remember, we played Armagh in 2014, and Aidan Farker and someone else had put Lacey in a chokehold, and it was really, really, the doctors explained to me, that's really, really dangerous, because you're gasping for air, and you can go out and you see that. And particularly Armagh, I find, and I'm always going to say that after the row yesterday, but particularly Armagh, you always seem to see that they done it against Tyrone a few weeks ago, where somehow Tyrone got 4 players or 5 players sent off in the one incident. And the pushing and shoving, it's silly looking, and there's no wide need for it. But I just particularly don't like these headlocks that seem to be going on an awful lot.
Yeah, and like you did mention, I know, it takes 2 to tango, but this is the second time now Armagh have been involved in something. And like you said, even talking about the headlocks, and if you're gasping for air, you start to panic, and it's not a nice place to be, especially if you're at the bottom and you're gasping for air. It's not great, and nobody wants to see it. So I do think there'll be suspensions, and they're obviously playing each other in a couple of weeks in championship, so it's going to add another bite to it. So the officials are going to have to be on the ball going into that game. But I suppose going back to the actual action, it was a big win for Donegal, and I suppose if you look at the table at the end of it, you have Donegal, Armagh and Tyrone all finishing on 7 points, but the narrative going into that last round of the leagues was so different for all of them. So it's hard to know where each of the 3 of them are standing at the moment.
It's hard to know. I found it, I was delighted from a Donegal perspective. I found it bizarre for, McGee and Armagh not to push on for that league final and, leave Rain and Rory Grugan out of the team yesterday. I thought that extra game we talked about last week again, that extra game for Armagh at that higher level, and know that the prospect of silverware would have done Armagh the world of good. But now they're coming off a disappointing result. They had Donegal. Donegal were in a position of comfort. Armagh had to call on the big guns, and they couldn't catch up with them now. But listen, we won't know until a few weeks where Donegal are and Armagh are at. Donegal have to get a few injured lads back. Armagh probably have shown a good bit of their hand throughout the league, and we'll see now. The suspensions now, if there is suspensions, I don't know, and I don't know enough about the ins and outs of the disciplinary system to say if there's much there that warrants now. But we'll see who gets suspended, or if there is. That I think that'll be a big one for the game ahead.
Yeah, and Finian, I suppose, Eamon, we've mentioned their Armagh put out a weakened team, and I know they're playing each other in championship in a couple of years, but we keep mentioning it on this show. The chance to be in a national final in Croke Park, silverware, and McGee is a competitor. No, I know they were still competitive, whatever, but I was surprised they were weakened. What are your thoughts on it? Did you think they go all out for it, or?
100%, yeah. I'm with Eamon on that. I think, Jesus, you can't look a gift horse in the mouth, and the league as well. You're playing the top teams, the confidence. I suppose they work so hard. And the talk was Armagh are back in Division 1, and that was a big kind of, they were down in Division 3 and they got up to Division 2 and Division 1. And getting to Division 1, and I suppose, getting to Division 1 is grand and playing against the top teams, but why wouldn't you want to go out and try and win the competition if you can? It's as Eamon said last week, it's a national type. Geez, I would love to have a Division 1 league medal. It's, they're very rare in Galway, and as are All Ireland. So we would love to have one, and I think you'd always should try and get there. And I just thought that you're playing kind of mind games, really, aren't you, when you're looking at a couple of weeks and not showing your hand. But look, Declan Bonner and the boys, they know what Armagh have. They've seen them in the league. They don't, whether they're playing against them or not, they know Rian O'Neill, they know the boys. They'll have clips will be going to phones of these guys and stuff playing. That day is gone, because every team is, I'm sure there'll be challenges, and the Donegal boys will know what the Armagh boys are doing over the next week. So it was a game there to be won. And in the GAA, there's only so many, there's not a lot of games in a year. There's 7 league matches. And Armagh lose a backdoor to a Galway or to a Mayo or someone. 9 games. Those are the games. It's different in FBD or Byrne Cup and stuff like that. But like, you've 9 competitive games in the year. You should be going absolutely flat to the board in every one of them. You should be, in my mind. And I agree with Eamon. Like, the likes of Grugan and these boys, they should have been playing, and they should have at least try and got to a final. I know, look, championship is the be-all and end-all, but the league now has become so important. And I was shocked with, we'll have to get Donaghy on next week to see what the story is. But no, it was shocking. But look, I think Donegal will beat Armagh in a couple of weeks' time. I think they'll improve. I think McBrearty is flying it again. They're coming good at the right time. People were unsure, and there's a lot of talk about Monaghan, a lot of talk about Armagh. Obviously Tyrone are All-Ireland champions, but I think, it's like Donegal are still a fabulous team, and they'll be there and thereabouts. I'm still tipping Monaghan, but I still think in a couple of weeks' time, I think Donegal will beat Armagh.
Yeah, and like you said, I find it strange, the shadow boxing, when teams already know each other so well. We all know what Armagh did really well throughout the league. Sure, we're all crowing about how great Armagh were and how it was great to see them back. And I suppose from a Donegal point of view, you mentioned it, I don't know, was it last week or the week before, we were talking about Michael Murphy and his importance to Donegal, and you named out a good 5 or 6 players who are ready to take the next step, and a few of them weren't ready for a couple of the games in the league. So now all of a sudden, I would have swung a couple of weeks ago, I'd be tipping Armagh, but like that, a game, Donegal are going into it after beating Armagh. Armagh can say, we rested players, but Donegal for me now have a lot of the better players coming back in like that, finding form, and off the back of a good victory, a tough victory as well. So like, from a Donegal point of view, you're probably thinking the game the last day couldn't have gone any better. A pitch that you don't like playing in against a team you're playing a couple of weeks, it became a bit of a battle, and he came out on top, and you still have more bodies to come back in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's an awful lot of people kind of a bit pessimistic about Donegal's fortunes for the summer. But yeah, once Declan Bonner and Rochford get everybody on field and everybody game fit, then Donegal will be. When you see what Tyrone did last year, then Donegal definitely. I'm not putting them in the top 3, but they definitely have a chance of competing at that top level. And the way they play, and as I say, they're going to trouble any team. They're going to trouble any team out there. And if they can get out of Ulster and get maybe one Ulster, or maybe even get a run to the All Ireland series, then they're going to be a difficult prospect. And I find that's always been the way. Like, Declan has had terrible luck with injuries. Paddy McBrearty's been injured, Murphy with the hamstring. There's been a few of the big players that have just been unlucky, and Declan has been unlucky. We're not blessed with 24, 26 top quality intercounty players. We need our top men, fully fit and going. And to just go back, I find the Armagh thing kind of, just touch on what Finian was saying, kind of funny, because remember the days where, you would change the numbers up on the so they don't all, the centre back could have 22, and this was going to confuse these boys. And I just found, like, we know what Rian O'Neill, we have enough DVDs, like we have DVD players and we have streaming machines up here in Donegal, so keeping Rian O'Neill.
Your first high tech up in Donegal.
we have a VHS of Rian O'Neill's clips there now, so no, it's not going to bamboozle the likes of Stephen Rochford that this Rian O'Neill book. Who is he? Come the championship, we know all about him, and the best thing for Armagh, and because Donegal could have got relegated yesterday. I know, I think results worked out that they didn't, regardless of the results. But Armagh had the chance of relegating Donegal, and they just never. They could have took a lot of wind out of their sails yesterday. And and they never went for it. So hopefully that'll bite them in the ass come a few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're saying, it could have been a double whammy. It could have been a league final place and relegating a rival that you're going to be playing in a couple of weeks' time. And I suppose the league has been brilliant, and I suppose the thing that's caught a lot of teams is consistency at the moment. And I suppose a team that we talked really highly about for a couple of weeks and not so highly about a couple of weeks later is Kildare, and they played Mayo yesterday. And I was going into this one thinking, do Mayo actually want to get to a league final? I was starting to think they didn't. Kildare were outstanding the week before, and we've mentioned their inconsistency and just their away form. Finian, I'm going to go to you because Mayo kicked a huge score yesterday, something that we don't see too often from Mayo, but they were very clinical yesterday. But for me, the disappointing thing was Kildare. I just thought we were going to see a good kick in them going into championship, and now they're finishing the league on a bad low.
Yeah, it's well, I suppose the fact that they're both, them and Dublin got relegated, makes it kind of interesting. I think they're going to play each other in the semi-finals. Is it? Are they meeting in the final? I don't know. But look, it's they've definitely improved under Glenn Ryan, and there has been a kick, and some of the results didn't go their way, like when they played quite well, but they've definitely improved. And obviously we're talking about Dublin coming back a bit, so are we in for a humdinger of a Leinster semi-final between the two? You don't know. On the other side, Dublin could go out and choke them with their style of play as well. So Kildare, a funny one. Leinster football as a whole is at a bit of in a bit of a crisis. I think they're all there's no one in Division 1. Most of them are in Division 3 and 4, and Kildare, Meath and Dublin are going to be wallowing in Division 2 next year. So the whole thing needs to look at itself. But Kildare are obviously the obvious contenders for a Leinster title this year, and as you said, yesterday was disappointing, shipping a big score. Now they do play a pretty expansive brand of football, Kildare themselves, but fairness to Mayo, as you say, they're coming right at the right time. League final against Kerry, they'll fancy themselves against Kerry, as you know, all day long. They won't fear them. Horan's machine that he's created, with players just coming in and out, and no change in how they play. Like he's played 35 players in the league. He brought on O'Hora yesterday, Plunkett, cornerback, scored 4 points. They scored 2 each. So that's, it's all action for Mayo, the way they play. Are they they scored 222, but are they still lacking a bit? Another forward, help Brian O'Donoghue. It's hard to know.
Jack Carney came in. He's a young lad. I think he kicked 3 points yesterday, but like that, it's a hard game to comment on because we saw so little of it. And the one aspect of it I was looking forward to seeing was Aidan O'Shea named at centre back again. But where did he play? So there still are a lot of questions from Mayo, but they seem to be going in the right direction.
Yeah, he was good. He was good, yeah. He was good. Sorry, Eamon. Aidan O'Shea, I thought, was quite good yesterday, but again, as you say, trying to figure out where to play him, it's a tough one.
Yeah, and I actually last week was convinced Mayo, other years I would have given them a chance to win All-Ireland, and I came out last week and says they're not going to win an All-Ireland, so inevitably they will win an All-Ireland. But it just seems from watching them during the league, we talked about spotting trends in team, and just Mayo didn't seem to have learned. But as again, we can't really say much about it because we didn't get a chance to see it, and that's the unfortunate situation. Tyrone Kerry by all means was a humdinger. We didn't see much of it, and that's a situation the GA have found themselves in. But so just going back to Mayo, yes, I think if they can get that scoring forward, if they can Killeen O'Connor, Ryan O'Donoghue and someone else, then they might. So I've flip-flopped again here now that they might have a chance to win All-Ireland.
Yeah, Eamon, you're well and truly on the fence there of Mayo. Next week you'll be ruling them out again. But I suppose, look, for Mayo, they are hard to call at the moment, but they're in a league final against Kerry, and the thing that they used to fear with Kerry, I think that's long gone with them. And I suppose Kerry, Tyrone, you mentioned it there, we didn't get a chance to see it. I'm actually getting a recording of it now in a while, so I'll watch it back later on. And Tyrone, a team we were writing off seem to be coming good. They're finishing the league on a huge positive, winning down in Kerry. Like, Kerry don't lose many games in Clarny, so they came down, they beat us in Clarny. They scored 9 points in the first half against a Kerry defence that had been moving really well up to now. You know, Kerry had really focused on the defence. You had Darren McCurry, who was absolutely outstanding. So, like, in terms of Tyrone, like, which wasn't a good league for them, all of a sudden they're finishing the league campaign sky high. Like, they'll be buzzing going in championship, and obviously they have Fermanagh first up, which, look, it should be a handy enough game for them. Look, they won't take them lightly, but and you'll know better than me, all of a sudden Tyrone are back up the top of the table again, and I think this year is going to be interesting in terms of championship, because it's hard to judge anybody at the moment.
And that's the thing, you know, we had Dublin written off, then they were back in contention, now they're written off again. It's just hard until we get to the summer or get to the championship and get to that, you know, championship mentality, as I like to call it. That's when we'll really know. So I still don't think Tyrone will, you know, get to the same level they got to last year. You know, they've just lost too many. There's too much of a void there left by the even squad members leaving. They're going to be a difficult proposition for any team come up against them now. But the one thing, and you know, I've had many's a battle with Tyrone, and you know, it was real intense rivalry, but you've always got to respect them, because the way they go about their business, they needed to go down there. Nobody gave them the chance to go down to Kerry and get that result, but they went down, and you know, that seems to be the way Tyrone operate best. You know, because the country was against them. The country was against them that time with the COVID situation last year. Majority and probably wanted them to lose the way they went about, you know, pulling out and threatening to walk away, and then they dug out a result against a good Kerry team, and they did the same yesterday. Nobody at all, you know, I thought Kerry would have, you know, won pulling up there, but Tyrone dug it out, and you know, they're going to be a difficult proposition, but I just don't see them being the All Ireland contenders again. You know, going in what we're seeing at the minute. And things could change dramatically in the next few weeks, but at the minute, that's what I'd say about Tyrone.
I found the weekend they had a bit more of a familiar look to their team, and look, the ground, the weather was good, and they just seemed to be moving ball. That first half, they were outstanding, and I mentioned Darren McCurry, and he was on young Dylan Casey there from Austin Stacks, who was outstanding in the county championship. Really solid young lad, but he got a good introduction what it's like playing against the elite inter-county when the weather is good, which is no bad thing for a young lad to get. You're going to get him, and it's about attitude then after that, and he couldn't have been up against someone much better than McCurry on that form yesterday. So look, I think Kerry will learn a lot from it, but it's one of them ones, I think maybe as a Kerry fan you'll be masking over, but at the end of the day it's Tyrone beating Kerry again. And even though Kerry had a few players out and they were in the league final, they had a very strong team out. So, Finian, we chatted about it as well earlier. Like, Kerry now going into a league final against Mayo, for me, it's a must-win, because you can't go into championship, similar to Galway, on the back of 2 defeats. So the pressure is now on Kerry.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be it'll be one of the best games of the year, I think, you know, because Mayo don't fear Kerry at all, and Mayo both teams will be setting their sights, as we said already, on winning the league. You know, like it's one of the biggest games of the year, and Kerry, you know, Jack O'Connor will be disappointed with yesterday. It's just the Tyrone thing, and you know, I know that's kind of gone away over the last few years a bit, but it'll linger a bit there. You know, particularly going to Killarney, and you know, he picked a strong team yesterday. And for Tyrone to come down, their kind of backs were to the wall, and to show that they can actually turn them over down there, you know, it kind of just leaves something in the Kerry mindset for you know, because Kerry had a strong team. They've set up their stall out, or they've set their stall out with their defence being strong this year and stuff like that. And McCurry kicked 1-7. You know, that's not. You know, that's not good for your defensive unit, regardless of who's marking them or whatever it is. But if you've got a compact defence, which they had been showing up, and I know Pat Spillane was talking about, they're chasing like dogs and this, that, and the other. You know, 1-7 from one player isn't going to, you know, that Tally won't be happy with that, and they will be looking at that this week, and they'll be looking to get down, and they're coming up against the running machine now on a different type of prospect on in the league final as well. But look, Tyrone, as you say, Tyrone are there. They're not gone away. Are they contenders? I don't know. If you've got Peter Hart and you've got Darren McCurry in your team, Peter Hart is an absolute Rolls Royce of a footballer at the minute. And again, we didn't see the game yesterday, but I believe he was. No one kind of knows where he plays. He doesn't have a position. Like he's a Trent Alexander-Arnold. Is he the new kind of picked at 7, but he's scoring, he's setting up scores, he's defending, he's all over the shop. So like if you've got him and McCurry in your team, you've got a chance all day long, particularly when you're tigerish in defence. But looking forward definitely to the league final. It's going to be a top game, and it's great to have it because as I said, the league is brilliant, and to finish on a big game between Kerry and Mayo. Kerry Mayo is always a great game. So
It's interesting too, lads. I think there's big doubts. There's about, would I put it at 5 contenders for the All Ireland, and there's doubts over every single one of them because coming out, I would have doubts about Kerry now coming out of that game yesterday. And when was the last time we've been able to say that? And I think that's a great thing for the championship. There's serious doubts, and the whole thing is wide open. And again, if you're a Donegal man, if even Galway man, you're thinking if we get a right run at it here, we're in with a chance.
But that's what it is. All the doubts probably gives every team a bit of confidence or a bit of optimism that it could be our year. We mentioned Tyrone, and the more people that write them off, the better it is for them because they're the best team at coming out fighting when their backs are against the walls. And look, Division 1 was outstanding, and I suppose we're going to go down to Kerry's opposition for the championship, Cork. They played Offaly yesterday, and what a game. It was just end to end. Defences seemed to be invisible for a lot of it, but I suppose it came down to a bit of controversy at the end. Offaly team, naive mistake by the goalie. I felt for him, but at the end of the day, he was caught out. The referee was correct. I think he had a bit of a rant on Twitter that he's deleted since, but I don't know what your opinions are on the whole thing. What do you reckon, Eamon? Was he right or wrong?
I think it's black and white. He probably should have let it run out for the, I think it was the 45, and he's got to learn the lesson, and I've learned it a few times that when the temper's up, you just don't go to social media. Come to social media, come to Twitter in a few days when it's like counting to 10. But the rule is there. The rule is there, and that'll stand to them. And that's why Offaly shouldn't be too disheartened by the whole thing. They still should go at Division 3 the same way they went at Division 2 because good times are coming. If they seem to be doing a lot right in that county, and especially with the under 21, good times are coming. They've just got to keep the show on the road.
Yeah, I think John Mon came out after and said that they're going to be going gung-ho for the Tailteann Cup, which is great to hear too, obviously after the setback. And like in terms of the team, they are doing so much right. They're going in the right direction. And for them, it is about keeping that momentum going. From a Cork point of view, even the way they celebrated that game, I think for their progression seems like the wrong term for Cork at the moment. But just for them going forward, staying in Division 2, digging out a game that looked like it was gone, it's massive for them. They have the likes of Sherlock and O'Mahony up front who were excellent yesterday. So, look, it has been a really poor campaign for Cork, but there are a few positives starting to come at the end of it.
Yeah, no, look, it's a building process. We did say last week, is it a 5-year? Maybe it is to get actually back to beating Kerry in Munster championships and stuff like that. But I suppose they're working off minor team and an under 20 team that won All Irelands. As you say, Sherlock, O'Callaghan, these guys were in and playing well. Playing well yesterday, and they need to find that level. The fact that they're staying in Division 2 is great, which will bring them on further. They'll be able to blood a few more players next year. And what Cork have is they've numbers, so they'll find more players, but as I said, to get back to competing at the very, very top level, they're a bit away from that. But it's a slow process. It was a great one to win. Jesus, it was like an All Ireland final for both teams, because just to stay up and obviously to stay in the All Ireland series is critical for a team like Cork. Offaly, on the other hand, as you said there, it was great for Monaghan to come out and say, the Tailteann Cup is serious. Like if Offaly won a Tailteann Cup, it'd be absolutely massive for the county, on what they're trying to achieve. So it gives the Tailteann Cup something now that, teams will want to cling on to. Down will be having a cut. Offaly will be having a cut. The likes of Longford, these teams like that you're the top of the rest, and that's a good place to be. I don't think it is for Cork. It'd be too negative within the county because the supporters down there, and it'd be the same in Galway, Kerry. If you're in the Tailteann Cup, they'll be just saying, "Jesus, how we have fallen so far," and even celebrating a Tailteann Cup wouldn't be seen as progress to a lot of people in a county like Cork. Whereas Offaly, it will be progress. So look, Cork, building blocks slowly, some fine performances. Yesterday, Ian Maguire, in fairness to him, he puts his shoulder to the wheel every day for Cork. And he runs his heart out, and I think he's the captain. And it's great to see when the chips are down and you're trying to put blood players, and you're that player who's been there a while. It's very hard. You can get disheartened, but he put his shoulder to the wheel again yesterday when it really mattered. And I thought, we got to watch the game late and all, but we got to watch it, which was great. But I thought he was fantastic, and I think look, will they feature this year, not at the ladder end, but a couple of wins in the qualifiers for Cork will be good.
And I think the point about Offaly and Cork you mentioned, it's about stabilisation. With Offaly, they're looking at progression more, but for Cork it means about stabilising until that batch comes along. Playing at the highest level that they can, and that has to be respected too, because you're not going to be at the top table all the time, and the boys that bridge the gap between the dark days and the good days, that keep that young fella that goes to the Cork game and watches him week in, week out, and he wants to be, even though there's no silverware, that aspire the next Cork generation. I think they're as important as the boys that are there when they're winning. That we had a man up here, Damien Dover, that hasn't a piece of silverware, but he's inspired so many of my generation, and I think counties have to realise that if things are being done wrong, then change it up. But if things are being done right, then you'll know more about it, Darren. If Cork are ticking all the right boxes, Offaly seem to be ticking the right boxes, so it's about getting to that place where you're in a position to win something.
Yeah, and I suppose the main thing is, and you both hit the nail on the head with it, the difference in levels. And Offaly are in that growing stage where it is about going step by step by step. You don't take the first step and then jump 3 or 4 steps. Whereas at the moment, Cork they need to just stay. They need to stay while a few more come up. And like you said, Cork is a big hurling county. And the worst thing in the world for the footballers is the hurlers are flying. They could win All Ireland, and that pushes the footballers even further down the pecking order. So for me, and this is from a Kerry point of view as well, and from Munster, because we have Limerick who are on the rise, Clare who have been solid consistently for the last number of years. Cork need to start picking up and getting to that level. And we all want to see, we mentioned it before, how important Cork are, not only to Munster but to the GA. They're a massive county. They have potential. It's just about, it's coming. It's just about sticking in there now. And the likes of Maguire and these fellas are the guys who may not have much silver at the end of it, but they will be inspiring a whole generation. So it was a big game. Great test of character as well by Cork, has to be said. And I'll go back to the kick out, the kick out, and Eamon, I'm going to go to you, I suppose. Finian, I could go to you as well, 2 full backs. And I was looking at it, and he's a young goalie, and I'm just wondering, should he have been more vocal with the centre back? He's kind of talking to him, but he's not talking to him. And if it was me in goal, I'm absolutely going batshit crazy at him to come and get it. But I think there was a bit of confusion, because I think he came out after saying that there was a similar a situation earlier in the game, and a hot ball was given. And he came out after saying that he thought, if I touch it here, it's a hot ball, 50-50, we might win it. And if I leave it go out, it's a 45 and it's a free shot at goal. So I can understand his confusion. And that it is, the free was the right decision. But I think supposedly earlier in the game, which I didn't notice, a hot ball was given for something similar. And obviously, look, that got into his head and he made the mistake. But in the end, it was the right decision. But I just couldn't help myself to thinking, should he have been more aggressive with his own player to come and get the ball.
For me, that's a bit of a cop out by him, because he's, he knows the rules himself. He's practicing 3-4 times a week on the kickouts and the short kickouts. That's one of the things that the principles, you cannot receive it back. So he knows the rules himself. He should have. The other side of it is he's young. He's inexperienced maybe, and he probably should, and a more experienced keeper would have been talking to that centre back. So he'll learn, and that's what it's all about. It's just learning. We've all been in situations where, he'll tell the centre back the next time, definitely.
Yeah, the centre back will be getting an earful the next time, that's for sure. And I suppose going to the other side of the table, you had the two now promoted teams going at it, Galway and Roscommon, who got the win against a weakened Galway team. We're going to have the two of them playing each other now in the final. I suppose we mentioned earlier, Galway had a great league campaign, are going into the league final off the back of a defeat now to Roscommon. But Roscommon were undefeated in the league as well, and it kind of went under the radar. But 7 games, they won 5, drew 2. They're a Division 1.5 team. Whenever they go down, they come back up. And I think the big thing for them going forward, obviously, they're going to want to win the league final against Galway, but they need to get that bit of staying power in Division 1 next year. But it's gas too. We were raving about Galway, and they had a great league, which they did. We were raving at different times about Derry. We kind of forgot about Roscommon. I don't know, is it because we half expect them to be winning a lot of them games, which they were, but I know Galway weekend, but it was a big win again the weekend by Roscommon. And look, they're going into the league final. They'll be full of confidence.
It's like Roscommon do kind of go under the radar a bit. People forget, Galway and Roscommon are in the last 10 years aren't dissimilar. Roscommon have 2 kind of titles. They won in 17, beat Galway in 17, beat us again in 19, I think, and hammered us in 17. Well value for their wins on both days, and they've been competing. They put Mayo to the pin of their collar in Croke Park in a quarter final. I know they lost the replay, but Roscommon are they've got good players. Conor Cox is good. The Murtas are back now. Ulton Harney's good. They're good players, and I think what Roscommon have, they've good range of shooters. They can score from a lot of different angles on the pitch. Really, really good shooters, and a number of them across the pitch as well. The Dailies can score. The Smiths can score as well, and they're playing out the pitch. But inside, they're dangerous. And if they get their system right and their defensive system right, they'll trouble any team, and they always kind of have. And they're kind of they're a crazy kind of a bunch. They're a bit of a Wimbledon. They're a bit mad. They're a bit mad as well. They can, and their supporters are a bit daft at times, but in a good way. They're great crack and all that sort of stuff. So
good
they
save.
Come with that colour and that. I didn't want to say too much, but they kind of come with that colour and that. They'll go to Croke Park and they won't fear us next week. Not a bit of it. I think you're right about Galway and obviously Kerry. I think PJ won't be happy with yesterday. He played a bit of a weakened team, but still, losing by 5 or 6 points to Roscommon on any day he wouldn't be happy with. So I think, that'll be a good game. Both teams will be gunning for that game next week. I think Galway, we'll have Shane back, we'll have Damien back, Paul back. Niall Daly kicked 5 points from play yesterday on his debut. Young Kilconnelly guy. I don't think anyone from midfield has kicked 5 from playing in a long, long time. So that was a win for Galway yesterday that he came on and performed. It gives us options around the middle, particularly where Mayo are strong. So look, I think PJ will be disappointed with that yesterday, but it'll be all hands to the pump. Galway will want to win this final to be bouncing coming into the Mayo game.
Yeah, from a Roscommon point of view, you'd actually forget they have so many big scorers all over the field, which is such a plus that a lot of counties, even the ones that we're talking about for All-Ireland, and sometimes the difference is the fellas who can actually get the scores, and they seem to have, obviously, the scores. They have very tigerish, tenacious defenders, and they have runners, so they can play so many different ways. And look, I suppose Galway have been building and building and building, and we mentioned it there, the pressure's on Galway, as with same with Kerry going into it, because as good as the league is, if you're finishing on 2 defeats and then you're going into championship, that's when the pressure starts. Then all of a sudden, that's when the doubts come into your head. So I suppose, Eamon, like if you're going into this game, would you rather be Roscommon, who have come under the radar and finishing on a high, or would you rather be Galway, who cruised through the league really? But
and
now all of a sudden the pressure's on.
I think I'd rather be, because Galway just seem to have that bit more quality, and they seem to be playing with that belief right throughout the league. And although Derry will be disappointed and disheartened, I think Galway did them a favour because they just weren't ready to go up to that Division 1. But in terms of Roscommon and Galway, I still put Galway that wee bit above them. And for Roscommon, we chatted a lot about what Monaghan are about. Roscommon could do worse than emulate what Monaghan have done this last decade, and stay in Division 1, because that seems to be the issue, that they're just not getting consistency in Division 1. And the reality of it is, if you want to be in the business end of the All-Ireland series, you need to be playing Division 1. Division 2 team might get there, on a whim, and luckily get the draw or whatever. But if you're playing Division 1 and playing against the best teams, you'll be getting the semi-finals and finals consistently.
Yeah, and I suppose two teams who were a huge plus, bonus, whatever you want to call it, from each throughout the league are down in Division 3, or sorry, I should say were in Division 3, are now in Division 2. Louth and Limerick, both from 2 promotions in 2 years. Obviously, we've talked about the Mickey Hart effect in Louth, but the job Billy Lee is also doing in Limerick is phenomenal. And imagine the two of them counties this morning going, right, we're in Division 2 and we're going to be playing Dublin next year. And we joked about it earlier off camera. Will that game be in Croke Park, or will Dublin be back to Parnell Park for the league games? No, but I didn't want to go without the show without highlighting the job that both managers are doing there. And I was working for a company that did sports equipment before, and I spent a good bit of time in Limerick, and this is going back 5 and 6 years ago, and they talked about the underage structure that they were putting in place. And that's what it's about for a lot of these counties. And we talked about Offaly and the great job that they're doing, and they're taking steps. And Limerick are very similar. And it's all about putting the structures in underage and not expecting a quick fix. And they've been patient, and they've built. And both teams now in Division 2, which is a very strong division. And it's going to be even stronger next year with Dublin and Kildare in it. So, you can just imagine the underage structure in both Limerick and Louth at the moment must be buzzing.
Yeah, no, it is. It's I think Limerick, it's tough when your hurlers are so good, and and you rugby as well, and it's another kind of a county that if they can get the same impetus into their football, there's a lot of football in Limerick, by all accounts. I think across the board they've got big numbers training at underage and stuff like that. So it is difficult when your hurlers are going so well. There's no doubt about it, and you're a predominantly hurling county. But the job, to get up to Division 2 now, and I think when Billy Lee went in at the start, he was kind of, there was a couple of interviews, he was a bit forlorn kind of on this is going to be a process here. And that was, he must be 5-6 years there, 6 or 7 years there even.
I think it's 5 years, I think.
So it just goes to show, these counties need to have patience, and they need help as well. And I don't know, is JP or whoever, going to put the same emphasis on football down there? Who knows? But, it kind of just goes to show that, the Dublin model that we speak about so much, can a few bob to a Carlo or, and a bit of help or whatever it is. No, I'm not saying Limerick are getting the help off the GA, but maybe internally they've set their stall out, and the fact that they're in Division 2 and they could they'd be as good as Cork or Clare to have a cut at Munster. Munster is wide open outside of Kerry really this year. So could Limerick get to a Munster final? I'm not sure. Are they on the same side as Kerry? I don't think they are.
Well, the year Tipperary won it, did they? They only beat Limerick by a point, and Sweeney kicked a sideline with the outside of the boot in injury time or something outrageous. So, they are showing signs, and we mentioned Billy Lee. I think when he got the job, he was actually part of a panel brought in to get a manager, and in the end, he took it himself.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a fairy tale story, and it's great to see. And like Louth, I think Mickey Hart re-signed or added onto his contract, which is I thought was funny because I don't often hear things kind of midway through the season. He's got a contract extension in Louth, but it just shows the progress they're making. That how happy they are with him, how happy he is with Louth and the county board and the structures that are in place, and it can't but be exciting for Louth football at the moment, Eamon.
And that's what it is. Sometimes you talked about structures and getting the right and being patient with the structures, and sometimes you need a quick fix in order to, and then you have to put the structures in place so the bounce back. Then, if you get me, and getting someone like Mickey Hart involved, and the profile that raises, and obviously the confidence it gives them, confidence in the GA and sport in general is a massive thing. And Mickey seems to have instilled that confidence in the Louth panel. And hopefully now, Louth will see that kickback from it down the line and see that, this will be the start of their progression.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, the elephant in the room over the weekend really was Division 4. It was the only division played over 2 days. Cavan and Tipperary, look, call a spade, they are the two strongest teams in it. Two teams that won provincial titles only a couple of years ago and somehow managed to find themselves dropping through the divisions. But I think the big thing was the fixtures and the lack of clarity over why these fixtures were set the way they were. You had Sligo and Leitrim playing. Both teams had a chance to get promoted as well. But they were robbed of that big day occasion, a big game occasion. That doesn't happen too often where everything is on the line, local rivalry. And for me, the lack of clarity on why the fixtures were the way they were, it gives me a few doubts about the Tailteann Cup. Are the GAA going to approach the Tailteann Cup with the way we all, as spectators and the players, I'm sure, want them to approach it with utmost respect, make it a big competition with it, which it is, because as we're blue in the face for saying it, the league is what it is because it's so competitive, because everybody is very close in terms of their level. So for me, look, fair play to Cavan and Tipperary, they deserve their promotion, but I just felt for the Sligo and Leitrim players because they were robbed of what would have been, look, it was a great occasion. It was a fiery game down there as well, a couple of red cards as well thrown in, which is going to affect them in championship, but they were robbed of a massive occasion. And look, Finian, I'll go to you. You know both teams well, two Connacht teams. Look, it's a strange one.
It was a strange one, yeah, but it's par for the course now that the GA does two things really well, and then they mess up something like just fixtures and things like that. We shoot ourselves in the foot so many times with these little admin kind of errors, and like the games should all be on, like as you said, the excitement is there at the end of the league, and it's the same in all sports. They're on the same time. They should be on the same time. It should give them that chance to not know what's happening in the other game or whatever, and it gives the supporters, like the supporters going to the match, then sure, look, it's a challenge game now because we're not able to get promoted. It's nonsense, really. What, like, to think that was the case, and it comes back as well to times, and I don't understand a lot of the times of matches. Like some matches are on at 1 o'clock, and I know it's to do with travel and things like that, but like we need to change and start moving with the times. Every other sport is making their sport really, really exciting, and we're making it like, sometimes you have qualifiers on at 1 o'clock on a Saturday and no one even knows it's over before you even know. We're all into football and we'd watch games or we'd pay attention to them. But like sometimes games are over and you don't even know they're on. It's just not good enough. It's not good enough. I think we need to start putting the effort that teams are putting into this. They need to be put front and centre for the 9 or 10 championship league and championship games that they're playing, and simple as that. And the weekend shouldn't be Irish or Sligo and Leitrim, we'll fire you in here or here or here because Dublin are on and this, that and the other. Like, let them play at their level and let them get exposed at that level and let them really, really be in a competitive setting. And we can talk about the championship and the structures, and I know Eamon, you have opinions on all of that sort of stuff as well, and that's for another day. But like, let's start getting teams exposed at their level, which they have done, and giving them that time, that show time on the weekend where they can actually really, really enjoy it, and supporters can really enjoy it as well. It was just a mess up. I think the fixtures on each weekend is a mess up. It's just not good enough. I think it's, everything's kind of thrown to suit traveling supporters or to suit whatever, and I understand that as well. But look, the players are putting in a huge effort. Let them be front and centre when they should.
I think it was a disgrace, Darren. Sorry, I think an absolute disgrace. We talk about bringing the next generation along, and to play for Sligo and Leitrim to get an opportunity like that there and not play it at the same time and have that red zone where people are checking their phones. There's a bit of buzz about the county, and to take that away from them, we do marketing in the GA, but we just tick a box. We just say we don't sell our product well enough or to the ability that we can sell it. And you look at the Premiership and a subpar. I know you're a United supporter, Darren. A subpar product, and what I see is the Premier League, and it's marketed so well. And we have an unbelievable product, and it's marketed just average. And I think we can do so much.
100%. And do you know what's a great one? A great one, Eamon, just on that. Like when you're at the game, just say you're at Sligo and Leitrim, and the tannoy or the announcer comes on saying that it's Tipperary 2-9, Cavan 2-6, and there's a buzz or whatever, and that changes as it goes through the game. It's like, oh, where are we now? And as you say, they're checking phones to see. Are we up? Are we down? Or where we're at? And it adds to the whole experience. And as you say, it's just marketing, and it's just being clever on how you create that buzz. Geez, that was a great day. We didn't know where we were. Look, we didn't work out, but we didn't know that coming, and we came with all the excitement of being a Division 3 team next year.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, like, and sure, we're all saying it here, and look, we're only kind of talking on top of our heads. And the GA, we have a product that we all want to see, and it's just about being creative. Do you know, and we mentioned there that we keep going back to the Sligo Leitrim game, and obviously it wouldn't have affected me as a Kerry fan or maybe Eamon as a Donegal fan, but I was curious. I would have been tuning into that game. I would have liked to have seen it. Do you know, and we keep going back, and like it is a case of repeating yourself, that they robbed the players of that. It's just, we're at a stage now where we have a product that is so good, and Eamon, you mentioned the Premier League and stuff like that, and a lot of it is advertising, whatever. But I always look at a sport like darts. Darts is a pub sport, and it's one of the most popular sports around over the winter. Yeah.
and a great example of good marketing, like you mentioned, darts, is F1. Like, no one gave a hoot about F1 until this Netflix series came out. And now everybody just loves F1, and you can tell you what, they're experts all of a sudden. But that's purely down to, they've seen a place and they've seen a product here. We'll get it out in such a way that it's actually broke the American market now. They found they struggle to get into the American market, F1, and now because of this Netflix documentary, they're in. And you see how many Irish people are in Europe, around the continent, and in Australia. And if we can get the product sold in a way that it becomes so marketable. We're sitting. You've London connections. We're sitting on a gold mine in London if we can market this game rightly.
But that's the thing, and we're all probably in agreement about the product and how good it is and the endless opportunities. And the funny thing is, if they even scratch the surface of what they could do, the debate about being professional and where the money is going to be unbelievable. We'll have loads to talk about, but we are at that stage, and like you're talking about, everything comes down to money. Sure, there's talks at the moment that Kerry and Cork, which has been moved from Páirc Uí Chaoimh to Páirc Uí Rinn because of Ed Sheeran, is now going to be moved to Clarny. And there's only one reason for that. Now, first of all, I don't think it should be moved to Páirc Uí Rinn. I don't think it's set up for a Munster Championship semi-final. But moving it to Clarny is only for one reason, that's money. And if money is the major factor with the GA and the head boys upstairs, they have to start getting creative, because we look at all like the other inter-county grounds that maybe aren't up to scratch and how much it would cost to do them up, the likes of Casement Park and places. This is what it's about. You market the product that we have, which is incredible, you bring in the money, and then you make all these grounds, bring them up to standard. Give the counties that need that bit of extra help, you give them the help. But you could be there all day, but it's not going to take a genius, really. Like, it's just that we just seem to be ticking the same box every year, whether it works or not.
I'm not sure how
see
Finian feels in this now, but this sums up this whole point in terms of the marketing and the fact that we're going in. We had an opportunity to remove it, and the fact that we're going into the provincial system and the nonsense that is the provincial system. When we're coming off one of the most exciting days ever in the league, and we're going into, Division 4 teams playing Division 1 teams, I just think, and we voted for this only last year. That's how far behind
Did we vote for it though, Eamon? That's the thing. We didn't vote for it.
100% agree. We did vote for it because it's there. Like, our counties voted for it. People in our counties voted for this concept that the players didn't want, but the county board officials did want, which is a complete and utter pile of crap. It's crap. Like, you've got people who in Galway asked the players that they want. The players told me, I was talking to some players that told me they wanted to move into a better, like, we're talking about tiered systems where the league is great because we're playing at the level. And as you say, Offaly are going to play Dublin now, Kerry are going to breeze through Munster. It's just, look, it was great for what it was, but times have moved on. We need to move away from all of that, and we need to get to the level where we can really market this game because of the Sligo are playing Leitrim and it's a brilliant game in the championship, or Dublin are playing Kerry and all that sort of stuff. And look, sport is elite. That's just the way it is. And the Tailteann Cup will be great if Offaly win because they will have earned the right to play at the next level. Simple as that. But to have people in county boards sitting there voting for themselves because they want provincial councils or provincial championships and all that sort of stuff is a complete nonsense. There's no argument for it. I'd love to have any debate. I'd say, Eamon, you're the same. There's no argument for it. Keeping a provincial system that is complete and utter. We've all won provincial championships. They were great, but they're outdated and it's completely gone. And I think to get to what we're talking about with regards to marketing, we need to move away from it. And yeah, we did. We voted for it, which I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, that's all we have time for in today's show. Unfortunately, we could have actually stayed there all day talking about it, but thanks to my two guests, Finian Hanley and Eamon McGee. Thanks for joining me again today, lads. And join us next week where we'll be discussing all the league finals and all the action.